Well, our passage today is Luke 8, verses 40 to 56, and two stories that are favourites of mine, actually. We read this. Now, when Jesus returned, a crowd welcomed him, for they were all expecting him. Then a man named Jairus, a synagogue leader, came and fell at Jesus' feet, pleading with him to come to his house, because his only daughter, a girl of about 12, was dying. As Jesus was on his way, the crowds almost crushed him. And a woman was there who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years, but no one could heal her. She came up behind him and touched the edge of his cloak, and immediately her bleeding stopped. "Who touched me?" Jesus asked. When they all denied it, Peter said, "Master, the people are crowding and pressing against you." But Jesus said, "Someone touched me. I know that power has gone out from me." Then the woman, seeing that she could not go unnoticed, came trembling and fell at his feet. In the presence of all the people, she told why she had touched him and how she had been instantly healed. Then he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace." While Jesus was still speaking, someone came from the house of Jairus, the synagogue leader. "Your daughter is dead," he said. "Don't bother the teacher anymore." Hearing this, Jesus said to Jairus, "Don't be afraid. Just believe, and she will be healed." When he arrived at the house of Jairus, he did not let anyone go in with him except Peter, John, and James, and the child's father and mother. Meanwhile, all the people were wailing and mourning for her. "Stop wailing," Jesus said. "She is not dead, but asleep." They laughed at him, knowing that she was dead. But he took her by the hand and said, "My child, get up." Her spirit returned, and at once she stood up. Then Jesus told them to give her something to eat. Her parents were astonished, but he ordered them not to tell anyone what had happened. So here we have two women, one who has been unwell for 12 years and is now coming to Jesus for help, and another who has been well, alive and kicking. She's a 12-year-old girl for 12 years and yet now is dying. And I think one of the things I love about this story is it just shows me how wonderful Jesus is, that in given a call to come and help a dying girl, he has time to stop for the woman who has touched him in the middle of the crowd, to draw out her faith, to help her, to acknowledge his part in rescuing her, and to give her the courage to speak of what he has done for her, before then going on to deal with the daughter of Jairus. And even though in some ways it feels as though it's too late because the message comes that she's died, he's still able to deal with that as well. And one of the reasons it makes me love Jesus more is because I'm very different to that. If I've got a job, you ask my wife and children, my head is in that job and I'm going to finish it, and I can be very insensitive to the needs of those around me, very focused. And I think if I'd have been in Jesus' situation, I would have blazed through the crowd, wouldn't have even sensed the woman's touch and so on. And certainly I would have been in too much of a rush to try and nurture and help her, draw her faith out. So it just makes me love Jesus more, both that he doesn't need to be in a rush, and secondly, that actually he can deal with problems that even seem he's too late for. Just shows us how wonderful he is. The situation with the woman who's been unwell for 12 years is quite a fascinating story, isn't it? Here is a woman who's been bleeding for 12 years, a gynae problem, possibly a problem of shame, an illness that makes her unclean and unfit to go to the temple to worship, a matter probably of deep shame and trouble to her. And she's tried all the doctors, clearly, because no one can heal her, and she's beyond hope. And what a terrible situation for this poor woman, what a burden for her to carry, what a terrible situation to have to face. And then she hears of Jesus, and so she quietly goes, doesn't have the courage to make a big thing of it, to expose her issues, doesn't have the courage to confront Jesus or call out loudly. She just creeps up behind him and has enough trust in the power of Jesus just to reach out and touch the hem of his garment. That's all she feels like she's able to do. And yet in that moment, she is healed, and Jesus knows that power has gone out of her. And in a sense, what happens next feels a little bit cruel, doesn't it? In some ways, that Jesus makes this big song and dance, it would seem, about someone's touched him, and Peter's going, yeah, Lord, look at all the people. Of course, someone's touched you. And Jesus saying, no, power's gone out from me. And the woman is almost backed into a corner. It says that seeing that she could not go unnoticed, she's set the spotlights on her, the one thing that she's tried to avoid, and she comes trembling and falls at his feet. The poor woman's in terror. And yet, actually, in that moment of terror, in that moment of trembling, she is able to learn to confess Jesus as her Savior. She's able to tell what God has done for her through Jesus. She tells in the presence of all the people why she had touched him and how she had been instantly healed. She expresses her need and his power to change. And he publicly announces then, "Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace." If Jesus hadn't have drawn her out, she may well have gone home thankful that she's healed, but perhaps feeling guilty for having stolen up on Jesus and stolen the blessing. She certainly wouldn't have been drawn out into a relationship with him, identified as one of his followers. She perhaps would have been kept from telling of what Jesus had done for her because of the shame of the manner in which she had done it. And so actually Jesus is putting the spotlight on her in this moment is a tender thing, a kind thing, to establish her in her faith and to encourage her. And she goes away with his blessing. Nothing stolen here, nothing underhand. Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace. It's a lovely, beautiful and tender moment. And then again at the bedside of Jairus' daughter, here is just, it's hard for us to get our heads around, isn't it? To go to the family who've just heard that their daughter has died. They've been desperate. You can imagine Jairus, can't you? Agitated that this woman is taking up Jesus' time. And come on, Jesus, you need to get to my daughter. She's dying. And then the message comes, it's too late. And Jesus confidently says, stop crying to everybody. She's not dead, but asleep. And everyone mocks. Of course she's dead. We can all see that. But he just takes her by the hand and says, my child, get up. And her spirit returns, and she stands up to eat, and stands up, and Jesus says to them, give us something to eat. It's again a tender moment, and just the change that Jesus can make. So just an encouragement for us again to see the beauty of Jesus, unhurried, unrushed, able to meet the needs of every individual, to see the power of Jesus. Just a touch of the hem of his garment is enough for the woman to be healed when no one else can touch her, and the hand of Jesus in raising Jairus' daughter from the dead. And also just an encouragement to think about our own faith and whether we are giving Jesus the praise for the change in our life, whether we are confessing before others our need of Jesus and our experience of his rescue for us. What's your story? Are you sharing that story with others today?